Simon, I want to come back to you because I think like whoever follows global football, global soccer, might recall this effort a few years ago for some of the elite European clubs to form a kind of competitor to FIFA, or at least a parallel system, the European Super League, as they would call it. And Infantino very quickly shut this down, basically said, you're going to, basically be, exiled from FIFA. I might be mischaracterizing what happened, but maybe you could explain that a little better, Simon. And also, is it basically impossible to start an alternative to FIFA or a parallel to FIFA?
I see the story of the Super League as a bit different. It was, as you say, the big European clubs. They wanted to break away from UEFA, the European football regulator, not play in UEFA's, not be subject to UEFA's jurisdiction, create their own closed league with no promotion relegation. And they lost because football fans rebelled against it. Football fans are attached to their national leagues as the most important, and they wanted promotion relegation. So the Super League failed because the fans opposed. The question of can you rebel against FIFA has come up in different ways. There have been periods, for example, around the time when South Africa was organizing the World Cup in 2010, and this relatively poor country was forced by FIFA to build all these so-called world-class stadiums. The South African government was unfortunately complicit in doing this, spent huge amounts of money on stadiums that are now white elephants, whereas South Africa, as you know, has many much greater needs. And there was talk then, well, what if some European federations, first of all, break away from FIFA, refuse to be part of this brutal system? So say Germany, England, the Scandinavian countries, Holland, Belgium, and say we need FIFA to reform because otherwise we'll not be part of the World Cup. In the end, countries did not dare to take this step because everyone wants to be part of the World Cup. It's the most storied competition in football, maybe in any sport. And the thing is that FIFA happens to have founded it in 1930 and therefore owns it. It can monetize it, can organize it. And no country is willing to do anything against FIFA that would entail leaving the World Cup. But even countries are so cowardly that they're worried that if they express opposition to FIFA, they won't be given any tournaments to host. So you might not get women's World Cups or youth World Cups, or if you ever want to bid for a men's World Cup, you'd be out. And also, even things like FIFA will punish you by giving you referees unfavorable to you. That's been a big issue, a worry of countries in the past. So no country has been willing to go with its principles and rebel against FIFA. Norway, led by the Federation president Lisa Klaveness, has been the most brave and outspoken, but they too, they're part of the whole system.
So, Alexandra, I'm wondering, since you are in a non-specific anti-corruption organization, to what extent is FIFA's reputation and FIFA's image globally within the world of anti-corruption, advocates, harmed by their actions? Or is the kind of, mass fandom around global soccer enough to kind of protect FIFA from any criticism just from non-soccer people?
So it's probably pretty telling that in my time there, Sepp Blatter was being interviewed about the reputation and sort of blurted out that he wasn't a Bond villain. And when you're reduced to arguing that you're not a Bond villain, it says a great deal. The reputation was then and continues to be absolutely appalling. And it was interesting to me because I wasn't known in the football world. I'm a governance person. The amount of social media that I got that said, in essence, we love football, we hate FIFA. I got that constantly, fix FIFA because it's our game. The sense of kind of global ownership of this sport is extraordinary. And the disdain for FIFA and the way that it conducts itself is extraordinary. I want to just sort of tack on to something Miguel said, because I think it's really important to the discussion about how this organization needs to be regulated. It's not going to regulate itself. We saw that very early on. It's got to be done by political oversight. But in fact, what we're seeing, especially, well, not especially during this World Cup, during every World Cup, is the absolute opposite. FIFA reaches out and regulates the governments of the host countries, right? We saw that in Brazil when they famously required Brazil to reverse its laws about alcohol in the stadia. They manipulate the application of tax laws through contract and want their global nonprofit status to be recognized so that every dime that's earned in a host country comes out with them. Not only is nobody stepping up to regulate them, they're cowed. Governments like the United States, a democracy that should be able to throw its weight around a little bit, instead is getting, fawning peace prizes and handing over tax revenue. It's not lost on the fans that nobody is regulating FIFA and nobody has the appetite to do it, even if they can find a path to do it.
I'm kind of aware, Alexandra, that one big conflict that you had with FIFA was over the issue of sexism. And, when you talk to people, defenders of FIFA or people within FIFA, they'll say, well, one great thing they've done is kind of, put women's soccer on the global stage and made, the Women's World Cup a really, significant event. On the other hand, of course, the governance of FIFA is heavily male, almost entirely, I believe. Simon mentioned the Norwegian Football Federation as being the one outspoken, and I think one of the only federations that's actually led by a woman. So what is the situation currently? And maybe you can talk to this, Alexandra. Have they made any progress on this being like a heavily male-run, male-dominated world? And does it matter that it's male-dominated? Does that kind of, have an impact on its corruption or authoritarianism?
Well, it matters in the sense that it's the global organization for both men's and women's soccer. So for them to be celebrating the fact that they are, advancing women's soccer, that really should be the bare minimum, right? That should be the floor. That's really their job. The progress is interesting because when I served on the IGC, it was under Sepp Blatter, who, was horrifying on the sexism front. He was quoted as saying we could make women's soccer more popular by encouraging them to wear shorter shorts. I mean, he was undeterred by any sort of niceties on that issue. I think that has become a little more sophisticated under Infantino. I don't think we're seeing the really kind of grotesque sexist remarks we were then. But anytime you have an organization that appears to, and it's always, whether it's actually happening or just it's an appearance of sexism, then you're going to deter additional voices. And of course, you want the voices of all of your stakeholders, again, broadly defined, at the table. So if there are men at the table and not women at the table, then you're missing out on half the world's perspectives. And that's just kind of good governance more generally. But it was a symptom in my day there of something much clubbier. There was this very strong sense of a men's club. It wasn't just primarily male. It was men who had each other's backs, men who had similar understanding of the challenges that they were facing. And, the comparisons to the mafia and a criminal organization are rampant. And when you open up your governance to a greater diversity of voices, gender, race, everything, you're going to start to chip away at that. And FIFA has been very clear that they don't want to chip away at that. And the number of times I heard the expression, we like to keep that in the football family, which sounds like the mafia, right? They don't want transparency, they don't want diversity, and they certainly don't want change.